Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Q&A. All right, let me just, while people are hopping on, if anyone's actually available to join me today, it's a bit of an unusual time to go live. However, I needed to do it at this time today, so thanks for understanding. I'm just pulling up the questions on a different screen. How is everybody today? I hope you are doing fabulous. And I hope that you actually enjoyed the downloads that I sent you. If you didn't get the downloads, I'm going to resend them all tomorrow, just so that you've got it all there. I know a few people are still chasing the recipe ebook, but I did send it around, but perhaps it was missed. So if that's you, don't worry, you'll get it tomorrow. And I'm going to tag everybody with their timestamp for their questions so that if you want to listen to all of the questions the whole way through, then that can sometimes be very helpful. But if you don't want to do that, then you can go straight to your timestamp for your question. So this last week, we've covered a lot. We've covered my family's go-to meals, and I gave you the recipes. And then we covered how to look after yourself and how to reclaim yourself from burnout mode, because that was my pet topic at the moment. So hopefully you enjoyed listening to that and got something out of it. And then on Friday last week, we went into how to bring it all together and basically my personal schedule. You guys wanted a week in the life and I gave it to you. So today is all about your questions. On Wednesday night, we're doing a bonus final training all about school lunches. There were quite a few questions about school lunches. So we will go into that. And I've got a bit of a system that I can share with you for school lunches then. So today, it's all the questions that have come through. If you didn't send a question through and you have one, feel free to put it in the comments. And if I don't have time to get to it today, then I will get to it. I can either just type you a reply or I can come back in and do another live if need be. So welcome to those who have joined me live. Please say hi. Let me know who you are. All right, so we're going to get started with our first question. And just before I do, remember that the doors to the No Fast Fam, the No Fast Nourished method, are open, and there have been quite a few people who have been waiting and waiting and waiting for this to happen. We opened probably, just over a year ago, and it's a coaching membership where each week you're given a small little step to take for you or your family to elevate your experience around food and health and wellness and your relationships and your connection as a family, because it's all very intertwined. And so I really enjoy spending my time there with the No Fast Fam. And we're getting some great feedback on the impact that it's having on those families. So we are opening the doors only until Wednesday night, and that's when we'll close them. So if that's been calling to you, just click. There's links all over the place in the messages that I've been sending you if you've registered for this event, this sort of week and a half long event. So if that's you, click on through and send me any questions that you have. All right. Okay, question number 1. Oh, gosh, I forgot to actually put the, you know what, I'm going to do this because it's much better for you guys to actually be able to see what question I'm talking about. So I'm going to now put the question on the screen. Yay for tech. Okay, so this was a question from Joe. I'm going to put the timestamps down, like I said. So that's now at 4:25. So Joe, your question was, are frozen veggies as good as fresh veggies? Look, I do have some good news for you. That yes, they're actually really good. And that's because they're usually snap frozen, or often on site, like on the farm, within hours of being picked. They are snap frozen to retain their nutrients and their freshness. And so look, they really are quite good. Veggies that were picked and then, say a few days goes by, they're transported to the supermarket or wherever they're going. If they're transported for longer periods of time, they can lose some nutrients. It's nothing to lose sleep over, but if you are wanting maximum nutrients in the food that you're spending your money on, then you can go frozen. My absolute optimal is going to the farmer's market. I know I say this a lot, but if you have a farmer's market near you, that would be the optimal place to get your veggies, because usually they've been picked the prior day, like just in the afternoon right before they leave at 3 a.m. to go to the market. So they're super fresh. They're local, so they haven't been transported long distances. They're spray-free or organic, and they just have something about them. Like, our kids can actually sense the difference if I've gotten the veggies elsewhere that week instead of from the farmer's market. They just know. There's something about it. I don't know what it is, but I know Georgia Harding of Well Nourished, she talks about the life force of that vegetable just being so much richer, coming straight from the farm that hasn't been sprayed, and it's nice and local. So there is something about that produce. However, that being said, also something to bear in mind is that with things particularly like apples, and there are other types of produce that fall into the same bucket, but often when they're being shipped to a supermarket, they can sometimes be picked before they've reached their prime ripeness. And and then they're transported and they're false ripened. They can be stored for like up to a year sometimes with apples, and then they can be false ripened with gases to bring their color out and to make them, fully ripe, and then they sell. Now, the danger with that is that a lot of the nutrients are sort of injected into that fruit or that vegetable right before it's picked, which is at its prime. And so if you're picking it too early, it hasn't been able to have that chance to get as much nutrients as it can from the vine or from the stalk, wherever it's coming from. And so, sometimes I will buy my produce from the supermarket. That's just reality. That's the life we live in. But look, if you do have access to a farmer's market, it's quite a fun experience. Go there and get your produce there. And yes, frozen veggies are also good. Studies have shown them to be quite nutritionally similar to supermarket produce. And just a few tips if you're looking for frozen veggies. Try to find some veggies that are grown in Australia, and look out for added salt, added sugar, added sauces. But honestly, there are so many great options for frozen veggies, so you should be fine. I hope that was helpful. Okay. I'm going to go to the next question. I love that we can put these questions on screen. It's awesome. Okay, great. All right, Angela, this is your question. And what a great question it is. She said, nutrition for little athletes. 3 of my kids are in a triathlon club, so we're training multiple times a week for swimming, running, and riding. And the eldest won't touch bananas or smoothies. Okay, that does rule out a few things that would be my go-to, but that's okay. There's still plenty to work with. And look, I just love that they are into this. This is such a great pastime for kids of this age. Now, firstly, I'll just talk about a few little things to consider, and then I'll give you some really practical ideas to, I guess, pull it together and make it happen at your house. So for these kids that are quite sporty or that are super high energy and they're growing fast, they all need plenty of 3 things: complex carbs, good fats, and protein. They're the 3 things. They're the trifecta for satiation and great fuel for those really sporty, athletic kids. And really most people, to be honest, but particularly for these kids. Now, that does not mean, thankfully, that you need to spend hours in the kitchen ensuring that every meal is a perfect balance of all 3. But just be mindful of considering whether they're getting those 3 things in decent supply across the span of the day. So it's helpful to have some complex carb bases on hand and ready to go. So that, like complex carb bases, and I'll explain what that is in a minute, but they're a really great starting point for packing in fiber, protein, various other nutrients. And you can just serve them throughout the week as a base for stews, curries, stir fries, or like so many different options. They release their energy into the bloodstream slowly. So they're going to provide that stable energy source, way more nutrients than simple carbs, and they're very satiating, they're very filling. So complex carbs are a really good way to go. When it comes to that second part of the trifecta, good fats, they again help you satiate and feel fuller for longer. Yes, I did say that right. And it's why teens might quickly go to chips or chocolate. It's for that satisfying sense of fullness from the good fats in those things. And so make sure that there are some good options on hand after school to battle those hunger pangs. And we'll give you some ideas for that in a minute. But just some ideas for ingredients would be nuts, nut butter like peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, any of those. Avocado, tahini, seeds, tofu, like any of those things are really great sources of good fats for the kids. And the third part of that trifecta, again, was protein. And of course, like I think everyone knows that the protein is there to build and repair muscles. And so for these sporty kids, it's going to be extra important. A lot of us don't need to worry too much about making sure we're getting enough protein in, because if we're not, athletes and we're not expending a whole bunch of that energy, it's pretty rare to have a protein deficiency. We don't need to be reaching for protein shakes and those sorts of things unless we're really very active or we have some other type of protein need. But the other thing that protein does, it actually helps to repair and create every cell in your body, not just our muscles, but the cells of every part of our body. So basically, it just has this huge domino effect throughout the entire body. And so if our kids are not getting enough protein in and they're super sporty, it not only means that they may not have enough requirements for their muscle generation and repair, but also this whole other slew of cascade effects through the body. So yeah, protein, healthy fats, and complex carbs are the go for these kids. Now, here's some tips to, I guess, just make that, make those three easier to get in. So tip number 1 is do this when you're packing away your food shopping, by the way. It's a concept that I love called habit stacking. Any new habit that you want to create, if you attach that to a habit that you already have, an existing habit, then that new habit is much more likely to actually happen and get traction in your life. So a great time to do this is when you're already packing away your food shopping, because you're going to do that every week anyway. Use that moment in time to prep some of those complex carb bases. It really takes you like no more than 2 or 3 minutes of active time. And so let's just say you've got your shopping on the bench, you're about to put it away. Instead of picking up that bag of brown rice and putting it in the pantry, just open it right then and there and cook it up while you're putting the other stuff away. And then it's done, and it can sit in your fridge for the week or at least a few days and be used for all sorts of things. I do that routinely. Every week I will make a big batch of brown rice or a big batch of quinoa, and it will just sit in the fridge and it gets used and used and used, often for brown rice pudding, which I'll come to in a minute. Sometimes just for a base on a quick lunch with some tuna and salad. Sometimes, it's just, sometimes dinner will go on top of that rice that I've made already. So just have those complex carb bases ready to go. You may also choose to have some overnight oats cooked. I'm sorry, not cooked. You don't cook it. It's just soaking. You just, instead of putting away the oats into the cupboard again, just put it into a container, put on the milk of choice that you want, plus any flavorings that you want, and just put it in the fridge for what we call overnight oats. And that's going to be a fantastic, quick grab and go breakfast. Sometimes my kids like to have that in their lunch in a thermos, like to keep it cold. And it's going to be a really good source of complex carbs, and you can put some good fats in there too. It can be a really good all-rounder. You may also take that time when you're putting away the shopping to think, is there anything else that I can just quickly whip up now while I've got things out? It might be the dry ingredients of the oat pancake recipe that I shared in the ebook last week. And that can just, like, you can just be set up for some bases of complex carbs that do not need to take much time at all. And look, if you're comfortable, if your kids are comfortable with those basic complex carbs like brown rice, like oats, maybe quinoa, you can branch out and try some different types of complex carbs like barley, like polenta, like freekeh. I always question myself when I say that out loud. Or like buckwheat. You know, some kids will like these things, others won't, or others might take some time to get there. So if you just make a small portion of those types of things for you to experiment with and try, they're going to see you experimenting and trying with those things, and they will eventually come around if it becomes normalized in your home. But that's a topic for another day. Now, the bases that our kids love, I guess I've probably already spoken about that. I'll skip to tip number 2. Tip number 2 would be, again, when you're putting away your shopping, make a big batch of chia pudding. Now, chia pudding has the trifecta. It has protein, it has loads of good fat, it has loads of fiber. So all 3 of those things are going to work for your sporty kids' benefit. And also, if you've joined me in the Fiber Challenge, you may also remember that it is the gold standard of hormone modulation too. So if you yourself, as a woman, are struggling with your hormones, whether it be perimenopause, whether it just be PMS, whatever it is, have a chia pudding every day with some good fats in there, and well, the chia seeds do have good fats, but it has the trifecta. So go for the chia pudding. But if your kids are open to having chia pudding, having some ready to go in the fridge is amazing. And even just for yourself. One tip that I think someone wrote into me this week saying, oh my gosh, my kids have never gone for chia pudding. They've always hated it. And until they heard the tip that I shared last week about if you have a mill or a coffee grinder or something that you can put your chia seeds into and mill it up into almost like a chia flour, and then make your chocolate chia pudding, it is legitimately like a chocolate mousse. So just try that with your kids. It is such a wonderful way to go. Very cheap and just awesome. Okay, tip number 3 would be to bulk out your meals. That is just the most convenient, like this, it would be your best friend. And of course, when you're bulking out your meals, you're going to have something left over in the fridge to put on that base of complex carbs that you made when you put away shopping earlier in the week. And so it just makes life so much easier. If your kids are open to having leftovers for lunch, you know, when it comes to school, we can talk about that on Wednesday night for school lunches. But let's just say they're at home and they want to have leftovers. Like, that is just such an easy grab and go way to go. And also, if you are out at those triathlon practices, then you can just take it with you. It's like last night's dinner is now going to become tonight's dinner. It doesn't matter if you have it twice in a row. Just bulk it out. And if your kids take issue with it being twice in a row, just freeze it instead and have it the next week. But you'll always have something to grab and go on those nights that you're out and about practicing. But the main thing, one of the most important things to remember is that fiber is just such a good way to feel satiated. It slows digestion right down. So it helps regulate that appetite and regulate those blood sugar levels. So that fiber is found in those complex carbs. So 3 things: good fats, complex carbs, and protein. Now, before I move on, I will give you some ideas for each of those things. So for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay, are you ready? Breakfast is the best time of the day to harness some influence or more influence over what your tween or teen is actually eating. You can actually see what they're eating. You can ensure that they've eaten it well and they're ready to focus on the day as they go ahead. Particularly if you have a child who doesn't do that great at school lunch. They're either too busy and they don't eat a whole lot, or they don't want to eat the healthy stuff in front of their friends who have the processed stuff. They get embarrassed or teased. My son, our 10-year-old son, is in that boat. He is actually willing, like he loves a whole big range of foods. But when it comes to school lunches, it's whittled down to this narrow array of more snacky type of foods. And it's really sad because the kids at school tease him about, even if he just takes yogurt with granola and stuff on top, it's just ridiculous. So long story short, breakfast and afternoon tea become the bookends of the day. And instead of stressing about school lunch and forcing him to eat stuff that he's not going to eat it anyway, right? Like kids are going to be kids, you can send it, but it's just going to go to waste, right? So focus on breakfast, focus on afternoon tea, but we can go into that on Wednesday night. But breakfast is such a good way to make sure that they just start the day right. Some ideas, and I have spoken about these briefly the other night, so I'm just going to list through them. And they're going to be ones that you know already, but sometimes we just need a reminder because common sense is not always common practice, right? We all need reminders sometimes of different options that we can try. So breakfast, we've got porridge, we've got raw oats. That is my kids' favorite. It sounds boring, but they love it. It's just raw oats with milk of choice, frozen raspberries, and a bit of cinnamon. They love it. Overnight oats that we spoke about, the oat pancake recipe I gave you, brown rice pudding. I will say that till the cows come home. The particular recipe that I've shared with you in the ebook is amazing, if I say so myself. And then chia pudding. You can even stir some oats into the chia pudding if you feel like it's not enough substance. I know that you particularly said that your kids won't touch smoothies, but for anyone else listening, smoothies are a great way, the best way to get in everything that we're speaking about. And for the good fats, you can add in tahini, nuts, seeds, flax oil, nut butter, whatever. So many options, avocado. Now, when it comes to lunch for these sporty kids, of course, you can go for dinner leftovers. Like I sent our 13-year-old to school today. We made this beautiful honey mustard chicken recipe on this sweet potato mash. And she was so excited to take that to school today. She's recently decided to go gluten-free to try to help with a sinus issue, and which has been years coming, by the way. It's taken her a long time to get there. And so, yeah, we're just being more creative with lunch ideas. And she said, Mum, I don't want gluten-free bread and I don't want gluten-free whatever. I don't want the gluten-free alternatives. I just want stuff that doesn't have gluten in it because she doesn't think that the gluten-free alternatives taste good. And we're about to try a new bread, so we'll see. But yeah, she loved that. Often I'll send her to school with some brown rice and like roast chicken and roast veggies and gravy mixed through it, and she loves it. But, it depends on the child. Like our 10-year-old, like I said, would never touch that at school. Our 15-year-old loves taking pasta bake to school, and you can get really good quality, like organic whole grain pasta, do a boosted like bolognese sauce with heaps of veg in there, and it's just delicious and she loves it. Other options for lunch would be fried rice, sushi, quinoa fritters. There's a good recipe that I can share. If you're interested, let me know. A basic chicken salad avo sandwich. There's nothing wrong with that. I make that multiple times a week for our kids. The sausage roll recipe that I shared in the ebook is also a really good trifecta for lunch as well. And look, if you've got a teen who doesn't want to give up like the handheld lunch, consider using like a whole wheat pita bread and filling that with chicken and salad or last night's dinner leftovers with some greens in there. We just need to sort of start to think a bit simply, but also creatively. Gone are the days where I will make food particularly for their lunchbox on the regular. Like I used to do that almost every day. I would, while the kids were eating breakfast, I would make something fresh and like dedicated just for lunches. Life does not allow for that anymore. And I've discovered that we don't need to be doing that to keep our kids healthy. If you want to and you enjoy doing it, fantastic, keep it up. But for those who just don't have the time or don't find that enjoyable, you don't need to be doing that stuff. So I'll share on Wednesday night more about that. But when it comes to snacks for these sporty kids, I've got a recipe for protein-rich pikelets. There's like jam-packed full of protein without any protein powders. I'm not a fan of those protein powders. I don't know that I put that in the recipe book. So if you want that one, again, comment and let me know. Snacks, again, chia puddings and the boosted chocolate milkshake that you all know that I love. Hummus and crackers or hummus and carrot. The simple one that our kids love is apple with natural peanut butter. It is so delicious. We recently converted a friend to it and she loves it now too. Any dips, like think about like there's so many idiot-proof dips online, and I will, maybe once a fortnight I'll make a dip and it just gets devoured, and it's usually chock full of awesomeness. And bliss balls is another. So there's some snack ideas. And briefly, when it comes to dinner, you can just make a big, just chop up any of your favorite veggies and just roast it in the oven with a little bit of olive oil and salt. And then just mix it through that batch of complex carb base that you've got in the fridge already, like your rice or your quinoa. Mix some pesto through it or something. And that is a great dinner, and it's fuss-free. It's got all the 3 things that you want in there. And basically other ideas for dinner is just anything from the family recipe book that I gave you from Monday night. There's so many dinner ideas in there, and they basically all meet the 3 trifectas. So hopefully that helps. And it's very quiet in the chat. I can see you're here. Please say hello. Okay, I'm going to move on here. We've got the next question. I'll just pop it here on the screen. And the timestamp for Monique. Oh, so that was a long question just before. It took a long time answering that one. So Monique has quite a few questions here. She wants recommendations for lunchbox styles, lunchbox frozen meals, air fryer recommendations, and a few other things. So anything lunchbox related, I'm just going to park it until Wednesday night, yeah? And I'll answer it then. But as for air fryers, okay, so I am not really speaking from experience because I haven't really converted over to the whole air fryer thing for no particular reason. I don't know, I did get one, but it was so small and I have a big family. And so I made chips in it, like those just potato chips, and I took up both trays and it just fed 2 people, and I've got 7 in my family. So I just haven't run with it. However, what you want to look for in an air fryer, if you have a big family, get the biggest one possible because everything shrinks down when it's cooked anyway. But one thing you want to look for is one without Teflon. Teflon is a whole topic that we could get into. Suffice to say that it's super toxic when heated, and in fact, beyond war zone toxic levels, the studies have shown. There's a really good movie. It's got Mark Ruffalo in it. It's called Deep Waters, I believe. It's on Netflix. It's all about the Teflon history and the Teflon company and the controversy and the legalities and the court case. It's a very good movie. And if you want some inspiration to convince the partner or yourself to convert from Teflon non-stick pans to something else, I highly recommend it. But what you want to do is find an air fryer that's either got a stainless steel inner or glass. There are some brands out there. Buffalo is one of the low tox brands. Instapot do a stainless steel one. Sorry about my voice. And then there's one, the Healthy Choice do a glass version as well. So there's those 3. Oh, and there's one more that was at Maya. I might just update the description of this post when I'm done with those recommendations for you. But that's your air fryer. So just look for one that doesn't have Teflon and instead has stainless steel or glass or both. Now, when it comes to egg recipes, oh gosh, there are so many. You could probably just Google egg recipes and come up with a whole bunch. But my favorite one I have given you already in the family recipes ebook download from Monday night. It's my quiche recipe, and it is famous now amongst my circle of influence, my little friends and family group. They always ask me to bring your quiche, Lainey, bring your quiche. And I make them in little muffin tray sizes. I've served them at weddings. I serve them when the kids' friends come over. When we've got it's just the go-to for me. But also the protein-rich pikelets that I shared that I mentioned earlier. That if you want the recipe, let me know in the comments. That's a really good one. Don't forget the basic hard-boiled egg. Again, that 13-year-old who takes the mash and the chicken to lunch. for school, she'll also take a hard-boiled egg. But again, not every kid's going to do that. I have a mixture of kids who wouldn't do that. But also, look, I think just Google egg recipes. Like, there are so many good ones out there. But like I said, I've given you the quiche one. I can give you the protein-rich pikelet one. Don't forget a hard-boiled egg and the basic omelette, veg omelette, which I think I put in the recipe book as well. I make a wicked sponge cake that takes like 10 eggs and it's really good. But I don't think that one's on the members only website, and I haven't put it in the ebook. Oh, I've just realized that this whole time that I said nobody was talking to me, I was clicking the wrong. I was clicking on private chat and not comments. Hey, Megan. Dark Waters and The Devil We Know. One is Netflix, one is not either. Oh, interesting. I've never heard of The Devil We Know as an alternative for it. Another one to Dark Waters. Megan, protein-rich pikelets. Megan, you're in the No Fuss membership. If you just go to the website, the recipe website, our members only one, just type in pikelets and you'll see it there. And someone else asked, where do I find the ebook? Look, tomorrow, if you're registered for this training series, I will send out everything again tomorrow. I think a few people seem to have missed it. So I will send everything out again tomorrow, replays and free downloads. So there you go. Right on. Okay, let's move on. Sorry. There was one other question that Monique had. Monique also asked for great defrosted meal ideas. And again, I kind of feel like almost every meal is a great defrosted meal. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, people in the comments, but like spag bowl, I just don't freeze the spaghetti pasta, but freeze the bolognese sauce, Mexican soup, stir fries, curries, like any main meal that you make, I feel could be frozen except for salads. I'm trying to think of another meal that can't be frozen and it's not coming to me. So I literally freeze basically anything. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting, but like anything salady or like even guacamole can be frozen. I recently got 100 avocados, spray-free avocados for like, I don't know, 30 cents each or something. So I made heaps of portions of guacamole and I just froze them in Snaplock bags and they were great defrosted. I don't know. Sometimes I think maybe we overthink what can't be frozen. I don't know. If you have any ideas that can't be frozen, tell me. All right, next question we've got from Karen. I'm going to pop her question here. And her timestamp is 32. Yeah. So Karen wrote in with saying that she's experiencing a bunch of not very nice symptoms, I must say. IBS, digestive issues, bloating, histamine issues with food, etc. So Karen, first things first, please book in to see a functional health practitioner or a naturopath. The two that I routinely recommend because I have experience with them personally is Cultured Wellness and Chris and Philly Functional Medicine. They both do online calls. I'm not a health professional, so I can't give you medical advice, but from my own experience and in just the knowledge that I have, it sounds to me like, yes, there are some gut issues going on. All of those things are caused by a gut imbalance or gut permeability or a leaky gut. And so instead of going on food elimination protocols, like, you might just feel better if you don't eat gluten and dairy and certain foods, but that's not fixing the root issue. So eliminating some food for a time might be an appropriate part of a gut healing program, but it's not the only part of a gut healing program. So if someone gives you advice to just go off certain foods, I would question that and just heal your gut. If you can heal your gut, those issues will disappear. Those issues are very well known. They're very common for people like Chris and Philly or Cultured Wellness to address with you and to solve and to have you thriving again. But some of the little tips that I would give you outside of the bigger picture of healing your gut would be, one, eating on the run. If you're eating on the run, then you're not giving your body an appropriate environment to digest the food. And so that's when you're going to end up with bloating and digestive issues, as well as perhaps if your body's not making enough stomach acid or bile to digest the food, often you can have those similar symptoms as well. And so something that you can do to increase the stomach acid and bile that your body produces is about 20 minutes before you eat, but it doesn't have to be exactly. Just have something bitter like lemon juice or apple cider vinegar, something, just a little shot of apple cider vinegar in water, or without water, but it would be pretty strong, or just a squeeze of lemon juice in water and drink that. What you'll find, if the lack of stomach acid and bile is the issue, you'll find those symptoms start tapering off. And so then you know that that's the issue. And so, the Band-Aid fix would be to continue to have that lemon juice or that apple cider vinegar or that ginger, like something bitter and acidic like that is the way forward. But even better would be to figure out why your body's not creating enough of that naturally by itself in the first place. And again, that's when testing with a health professional comes into play. The other thing that I would suggest is stress. I don't know that I've spoken a lot about stress in the last week. It's just because that's my personal experience, is that stress was almost the end of me. Like, it caused bloating, it caused gut permeability. And so if you heal your gut, but your stress still remains, it's just going to happen all over again. And so for me, one of the most powerful things that I've learned to do is get a hold of my stress and where the stress is even coming from in the first place, by looking at beliefs, by looking at the way that I see the world and my perception of stress and urgency, and really just getting hold of my nervous system and doing my breathing regularly each day to almost force my body out of that sympathetic fight or flight stage or state and into that parasympathetic rest and digest state multiple times a day. And so I'm retraining my body to live in that state, which is a much more conducive place for optimal gut health and digestion of food. So I hope that something I've said there helps you, Karen. I know that it's not fun to be where you are, and I do hope you get the help that you need for that. All right. Next question. Well, this is a big one. This is a big question. We could talk a long time about this, so let me just try to make it as concise as possible. Danielle said, now, Danielle, welcome, Danielle. I saw Danielle has joined the No Fuss fam, so we'll get to go into this in greater depth inside the membership, Danielle. But for now, the question that Danielle asked is, she'd love to talk about how to keep up the good food when out and about or with friends and family who are cooking or buying food to share with us. Oh, it's a loaded topic, isn't it? Like, sometimes our relatives and our loved ones, they get it and they're on board and supportive, and quite often they're not. Like, quite often they're on a different path. They haven't had need or desire to look at nutrition much, and it can be considered rude to not participate in the social norms of what everyone else is eating. So I get it. It can be a bit loaded. So I guess there's two ways to go with this. One, if you or your family have an allergy or you have a need for gut healing and there's like quite an intensive need to eat a certain way for a set period of time or forever, then I think that's almost easier to navigate, because people are so accustomed to catering for people's allergies like gluten and dairy and seafood and corn and all these things, right? And so if you have a medical need, like, what's an example? So our daughter, she was diagnosed with PANDAS, which is like a brain inflammation as a result of a strep infection. It's like an autoimmune condition. And so it's not very well known. People don't understand it. But sugar is her, arch nemesis. Yes, her enemy. And so, we had to navigate the school birthday cupcakes at school, and we had to navigate, the grandparents giving treats and all the rest of it. And it's easy because that's a medical need. Well, actually, no, we've figured out that her brain is inflamed and sugar makes it worse, and these are the symptoms. So right now, we're just I get to, the sugar that she has is when I get to choose and navigate. We say, well, actually, to keep it simple, you wouldn't say that. You'd just say, we're actually not eating sugar for a while. She's just eating this way because of this medical need, or whatever gut healing regime you're on, like whatever it is, you have a need, it's a medical need, and that's what we're doing. It's just cut and dry, black and white. If you're going to someone's house for dinner, just say, oh, by the way, so-and-so can't eat XYZ because, it's just a medical condition that we're working on. And like gut healing is that. So just make it easy and say that. However, of course, if this is just a way of life that you're embracing and you're not quite sure how to navigate, like you want to eat this way more often than not, and you're going to someone's home and they're being, they're opening their home for you, they're being generous and making you dinner. Personally, I just go with the flow. I mean, one night a week, one night a fortnight, it's not going to, tip the boat. You are doing such an awesome job of nourishing your family at home that when you're out and about, I just go, yeah, it's just not worth the stress or the discomfort and offending people and showing that you're not grateful for what they're doing. And I just think unless there's a need, like you're healing yourself, like you've got an allergy, and don't discount healing yourself as a medical need. That really is a medical need that you can embrace and identify with. This is what I'm doing for this period of time, and that's the way it is. But if it is just that lifestyle choice, you can offer to bring food with you and say, hey, what can I contribute? And just go with it that way. But I don't know, even with Halloween, you guys, I know I see all these beautiful ideas for cute, healthy Halloween treats and platter ideas out there. And I just think, oh, that's awesome. And if I had all the time in the world, I would totally do that. But I don't have all the time in the world, and it's one night. And I just think, you know what? For Halloween this year, our kids are all going trick-or-treating, and they are going to get lots of treats, and they are going to have a sugar high, and they are going to suffer because of it for one night. And what happens the next day, though, and this is where you can start to build in some boundaries. And so the next morning, the Halloween witch visits. And the Halloween witch swaps out any of the lollies that they haven't eaten. So they're obviously going to eat their favorites on the night probably. And the rest is just like lollies they don't even like, but they're going to eat them anyway because they're there, right? So they disappear with the Halloween witch, and the Halloween witch replaces it with colouring in books or the fun day lollies in this case for Rosie, because they're sugar-free, but she still really likes them. And so I just have to suck it up for a night. And I think Halloween is actually really fun anyway. So that's kind of my approach to like going out to dinner at a restaurant. Like, okay, let's take that example. If you go out to dinner at a restaurant with some friends, you're still in charge of ordering for your family. And so if your kids are on board, great, just order what you'd normally order, that suits your dietary preferences. However, if your kids are going to have a bad case of comparisonitis when they see the other kids getting Coke delivered, or they, whatever you haven't ordered for your kids that the others do, then just preempt that by having a conversation with the kids at home before you go and just say, hey, there's going to be some options tonight for dinner. I would love us to eat this because we know it helps us feel amazing. Would you be willing to do that? And look, if they're not willing, I'm not a big believer in forcing our kids to, feel deprived when there's a kid right next to them eating a certain way. And so what I would say then is say, let's have a compromise. My compromise with my kids, I never buy them soft drink. That's just where I draw the line. Like, I will order them like the sticky date pudding for dessert, or, the pizza for the main, whatever it is, but I just don't order soft drink. That's just my own decision around what I will and won't do, because I think there's so much sugar in that thing. That's another conversation. But the other option, if your child is really upset at this idea of not ordering whatever they want, you can just go the education and awareness route and teach them to be in tune with their body. And so you can say to them, okay, look, if you want to order that, let's just go ahead and order that. Pay attention to how you feel. Like, how are you feeling now before the meal comes, or like before you go out? And then, 20 minutes to half an hour after they eat, ask them again, how are you feeling right now? And if you do that routinely, month in, month out, year in, year out, like just have a bit of a habit and a culture around just checking in with ourselves around how we feel after we eat certain foods, then your kids will absolutely gain this appreciation for themselves, which is way more powerful than you forcing them to not eat certain things and then getting resentment and bad feelings around that deprivation. That's a much more powerful way to go about things. And that's the way that I like to do things. But at the end of the day, if you just really, really want to lead and your kids are so little that they can't really make the choices for themselves or whatever, you do have the option of just telling your friends and family how it is and just saying, like, if there's a platter going around and it's something that they've made, or it's a bring a plate night and they're like, oh, this is what I made, have one. And you're like, actually, oh my gosh, like that looks amazing. And I would so love to eat your cooking. It looks delicious. But I just know that from experience that when I eat that ingredient that's in that, I'm going to be paying for it for days to come. So I'm going to opt out this time, but it looks so good. I'd love to have it. Like you can just show respect and gratitude for what people have made for you while still stating that this is a decision you've made for yourself and you want to feel good. No one can argue with that. No one can say, oh, I want you to feel bad for a few days at all. So I hope that that's helped. I let go of the reins when we're out, typically, within reason, because I know that at home, we eat at home, like the vast majority of the time we're eating at home. And I know that at home, it's just whole foods and it's, the nutrition is covered. And so when we go out and about, just, we get fish and chips, we get ice cream, we get do Halloween, that's my personal preference. And it's up to you how you want to navigate the other things that we spoke about earlier. I'm probably blabbered on about that long enough. What do you think? But I do hope that helps, Danielle. Now, Jody. Okay, I'm going to paste Jody's comment here. Jody, there's not a whole lot that I'm going to answer your question with that we haven't covered already. So I'm just kind of going to go through it quickly. Jody says, I move slowly in the mornings. I'm looking for ideas on prepare ahead breakfasts that I can ideally just throw in the oven to cook through. And yeah, Jody, totally get that. So number one, brown rice pudding. I know this is all stuff that I've said before, but give it a go, embrace it, and give it a shot. Brown rice pudding is amazing. You can make a big batch of that for the week. I often will do this. I'll make a big batch, put it in the fridge. And personally, I'll just put it on the saucepan to warm up with some extra milk, but you can just put it in the oven, totally fine. Quiches, those mini quiches, and you can omit the pastry if you want and just have the egg and the veg. You can pre-make them in little muffin trays and have them sitting in the fridge or the freezer and just pop them into the oven. And it's just like having an omelette, but in a quiche shape or a cupcake shape. Like I've said today already, chia pudding is grab and go. It's not the oven, but you can just grab it from the fridge and go. Overnight oats is the same thing. Grab it from the fridge and go. Porridge you can also make in advance and whack in the oven. Just make sure there's plenty of liquid in there. So it's a very runny porridge because it will lose liquid as you cook it in the oven. Dinner leftovers like soup. We don't need to have traditional breakfast foods at breakfast time. We can have soup or dinner leftovers and curries and stews. They're some of my favorite breakfasts sometimes. Even pancakes. Lots of people tell me, I've never done it yet, but lots of people tell me that they make their pancakes in a batch and then they freeze them individually and you just put them back on the fry pan to warm up slowly and they're great. So there are so many options there. My husband, Jordan, is the best at making smoothie portions that have the booster blend in it, as well as the veggies, as well as the fruit. And the date paste, all he has to do is whack that in the blender with some liquid and he's done. And it's got everything in there. So I feel like that's a very easy solution for you. I'm excited to share that with you. Now, Julie. All right, I'm going to paste Julie's question here. And the timestamp for Julie is, all right. Julie, first things first, like I said with the question just before, I'm not a health professional. And so these types of questions are very much best placed with a naturopath or with a functional medical professional. The two that I regularly recommend, because I've used them personally and had great results with, excuse me, are Cultured Wellness and Chris and Philly Functional Medicine. They both do online consults. That being said, your first question about iron absorption, I'll give you one little tip here. To absorb iron, we need vitamin C. And so if you're having an iron-rich meal, because it sounds like you're probably quite conscious about your iron intake, and so you're probably trying to have lots of iron-rich foods, when you're having those iron-rich foods, just pair it with a source of vitamin C. That can be things like a squeeze of lemon on your salad. And actually, things like spinach and kale, those two things are actually already rich in vitamin C and iron. So you don't need to worry about it with those two. But if you're having a steak, for example, have it with a salad that's got lemon on it, or a salad that's got tomatoes and capsicum in it. You could have a pesto, because in the pesto there's lemon and there's lots of other sources of iron. In the membership recently, I created a recipe for someone whose child was very low on iron, and it's a raspberry smoothie, and it's awesome. Like, you just look at the different foods that have iron in them, and then make sure, like, put it in a smoothie, like raspberries and, oh gosh, now my mind's gone blank. There's a whole list of them, and just pair it with things that have lots of vitamin C in there, or even just a portion of vitamin C. When it comes to fatigue, the trifecta of nutrients that we spoke about earlier with, fueling the nutrition of sporty kids was an earlier question. And the trifecta response to that is the three things, like whole grains, to make sure you're getting plenty of satiation and slow burning energy that's stable through the day, rather than simple carbs that have that, big spike in blood sugar and crash. And then you need something more, so it's a spike and crash and doing this all day. So whole grains will give you that nice, slowly sustained energy. Good fats and protein for the same reasons that we spoke about earlier, and veggies. But also when it comes to fatigue, please get a test done. Like, if this is a long-standing issue, and perhaps it goes hand in hand with your low iron, but if it's a long-standing issue, life does not need to be that way. And so please just figure out what the cause is for that fatigue and address that. Like, I can give dietary recommendations, and of course they're going to help. Like, good fats and protein helped when I was fatigued with adrenal fatigue. Upping my good fats and my protein was a game changer for me. Like, it really can be a big difference. So do those things. But also I had to support my adrenals in other ways as well. I had to get lots more sleep. I had to take some little herbal tincture that was specially formulated to help my adrenals recover. So do the research. You are worthy of finding the cause of the issues that you face. You don't need to keep on living through them. But the other thing I would say is breath. Oh my gosh. For those who have been with me a lot this last, week and a half, I know I've spoken about breath work a bit. It's a recent discovery of mine, so I'm all enthusiastic about it. But I'm also reading a book at the moment called Breath, recommended by Dr. Libby. The book is incredible. Our breath is of course it's life-sustaining, but the capacity if we can train our lungs to have a greater capacity, then it increases our lifespan and our quality of life astronomically. And the fact that we can breathe our nervous system into regulation can help with our energy as well. Like, it is just incredible. So just breathe deeply multiple times a day. Set an alarm on your phone to fill your lungs to their capacity, and then slowly breathe it out. Do that, 20 times, multiple times a day. Just set the alarm. I do it when I'm driving the car. And you don't have to breathe to capacity every time, but just a nice big breath. Quite often we're breathing very shallow, and we're not feeding our body with oxygen. And so sometimes that can be very helpful. Sorry, I'm just checking. I saw there's a comment. Oh, Megan said, I love brown rice pudding. Yes, it's so good. When it comes to arthritis prevention, Now, one thing that arthritis can often be like is an autoimmune condition, right? Which can often be a gut related thing. So often we don't think about arthritis as being a gut issue. However, it's very commonly resolved when we look at gut health. You can also do like an anti-inflammatory diet every morning. And again, this is a recipe that I'm giving to you guys. It's my staple morning drink. I have it every day. And now 2 of the kids and Jordan are also having it. So now I have to make like 5 liters of it every week. But it's just a big knob of turmeric, an equal knob of ginger, whizzed up into like 2 liters of water with the juice of 3 lemons, a pinch of cayenne pepper, honey to taste. I'll give you the recipe. Like my daughter made it herself the other day in like 3 minutes. It doesn't need to take long. Actually, juicing the lemons is the longest time consuming part. But having that each day, and I also have some ginger in my smoothie, has really taken any inflammation that I was feeling in my body and my muscles like right down. So anti-inflammatory diet, so lots of anti-inflammatory foods like turmeric and ginger, but also consider taking down your sugar intake, your gluten intake, and just you can look up anti-inflammatory diet, and it's quite a well-known diet you can follow. But they're the things that I would suggest. I hope that helps. But again, do make an appointment with a health professional because I really think you'd benefit. Right on. Now, Sally. Okay, sorry, it's a big one, if you can actually see this. I just put that in the wrong place. I was wondering who was commenting under stacked whole food blends, but that's me. Sorry, I put that in the wrong place. I put it as a comment on YouTube instead of here. Sorry. Okay, here we go. 5637. Okay, Sally. Mr. Six and his unwillingness to try anything new with food. Oh gosh, he's forever been this way. But now we're seeing refusal of what were safe foods, as well as a lot of anger around food and just big emotions if asked not to snack before dinner or if I serve something he deems he doesn't like without trying. I'm talking throwing plates around the room or attacking his sister, causing harm. It's exhausting, to be honest. So any tips are welcomed. Oh, Sally, that sounds intense. I'm sorry to hear that. Sally, I know that you're a member in the No Fuss Nourish fam, so I'd like to go into greater depth with this question with you inside the membership when we have our next Q&A. But for right now, what seems to be screaming out to me is perhaps, number 1, a parasite issue, because both, and I guess number 2 also, a gut imbalance. When we have either parasites or a gut imbalance, so we have this overabundance of a certain strain of bacteria in our gut, they actually cause some pretty hefty, significant cravings for food. And our child is completely out of control of that feeling and that response. It is a big deal. So the first thing that I would likely do, because, this is not just a typical picky eating situation where the kids have a preference for certain foods. Like, he is very emotional about it. So I would suggest getting a gut test done, getting a stool test, not at a GP, but at a naturopath. Cultured Wellness do them, Chris and Philly Functional Medicine do them, or you can find your own local naturopath if you want to go in person. But they'll be able to test for things like parasites, things like bacterial overgrowths and gut imbalances. And I dare say that that's probably what's at play here. But if you go back, because you're in the membership, if you go back to the fussy eating module, there's some summaries of causes of picky eating that I've summarized talks from Kirsty Worth, the gut expert at Cultured Wellness, in there. There's also some really good strategies to help kids who are fussy eating, like keeping it light. Like, I know that, he's got a lot of anger around not being told he can't snack at certain times. So maybe implementing some snack times during the day. And so maybe when the latest time that you'd be happy for him to snack before dinner, let's just say perhaps in theory, it might be 3:30 after school or 4 o'clock, and just say, hey, Mr. Six, it's snack time now if you want some snack now. And then we need to wait until dinner after that. So he's given a choice and it's kind of within his control. And he's reminded, oh, now is the time to eat, rather than him forgetting and then eating right before dinner. You're like, actually, no, we're about to have dinner. You can't eat now. So kind of implementing times to eat and telling him, hey, do you want to? Like, remember that we've spoken about this in the membership too, but remember that you're the one that's in charge of what food's on offer and when. And he is in charge of how much he eats, of what's on offer, and even whether he eats. And so remember, and just stand firm in your roles and just give him lots of ample choice and decision around that. But that's really hard. But I do suggest going back to those talks and looking through those. If you've done that recently already and you still want to talk about it some more, I would love to have a one-on-one coaching with you live, or just talk more to this inside the membership. But because time's going on in this general Q&A, I'll stop here. But do please, Sally, reach out to me if you want to talk more about that. Now, the last question here was from Emma. And Emma, I'm so sorry, but I read your question, and it says, you know what, she says, hi, Lainey, I'm very interested in your thoughts on this. It's a long sales pitch, but it covers lots of the information on food you've given us over the years. My hubby has arthritis and has just changed medication again. He's not keen on dietary changes, so thought this might be an option for him. Thanks in advance for your insights. And so, Emma, I clicked on the link and I started to watch the video that was in the link, but it was an hour long. And I listened to as much as I could as I was getting ready for this Q&A. I probably listened to about 20 minutes of that hour-long video. And for those who don't know, it's a doctor called Dr. Gundry, and he talks a lot about the dangers of lectins and about avoiding lectins, like are in tomatoes and eggplants and whole grains, to help with certain health ailments that people come across. And arthritis is likely one of them, because your husband has arthritis. So what I want to say to that is this. Again, I'm not a health professional. However, from listening to so many health professionals over the years, and in fact, just recently I interviewed Kirsty Worth, who's a gut specialist at Cultured Wellness, and we were talking about this vilification of lectins and all these different compounds in whole foods. And I love her response. She said that we need to stop vilifying certain whole foods because of certain compounds like lectins, because if we are sound in our gut, if we don't have an autoimmune condition, if we don't have gut health issues, if we don't have gut permeability or arthritis, etc., all these things, then we're perfectly okay to be consuming lectins and like compounds. It's when we are compromised with our gut health that it may become then problematic to have these lectins in there. And so what I would suggest, and I know your husband doesn't sound too open to the idea of dietary changes. However, what you could give him is the link between gut health and arthritis, gut health and autoimmune conditions, and show him that if he were to heal his gut, he may not be facing arthritis and therefore wouldn't need to be omitting lectins and things from his diet. Now, if I've not hit the mark with that video because I didn't hear the whole hour, please forgive me and maybe give me a little summary. And I'd love to talk that through with you. But it all comes down to the root cause, which is usually our gut. And so we need to go back to those basics and not eliminate lots of beautiful whole foods from our life just because they have lectins in them. Guys, that was the last question. I hope that you have enjoyed this Q&A. I hope you've gotten something out of it. Yep, I've just changed the comments. So that was about an hour. That's not too bad. We had quite a few questions. If you have any questions, particularly about school lunches, send them through today or tomorrow, because Wednesday night is when we have our dedicated bonus school lunch training on. And don't forget that if you like this format, if you like being able to ask questions and get answers and go, dive into particular topics like school lunches and, family go-to meals, all the rest of it, then consider joining the No Fuss Nourished Method membership. The doors are open until Wednesday night, and we've been welcoming some awesome women in, and it's so exciting to see. I love hanging out in that space. I love the connections that some of those women are making and the support and the improvements that are happening in these women's lives and for that of their children. Just having someone to support you, having a group of women who are all on the same path to support you, and being able to block out everything else and just listen to this roadmap that you'll be given, this one next thing to do each week. And you can take it at your own pace. You don't have to implement something every week. But of course, there's also the Q&As. Next week, we actually have a guest expert coming in. Her name's Philly Billette. If you caught I've interviewed her a couple of times here in this main group. She is amazing. She is helping us identify our limiting self-beliefs because she believes that that is the root cause for much of our body burnout that we as women face. So she's coming in to help us identify that next week because we are this month doing a bit of a deep dive on our own wellness and healing from body burnout and looking after ourselves because we are number one. A lot of women join the membership for their kids to help learn how to nourish their kids better, and you'll definitely learn how to do that. And there are so many ways you can nourish your kids without them even knowing. We have parents of fussy kids in there who have improved the way their kids eat, not just from hiding veggies in meals, not like, you can always do that, sure, but there are so many other ways we can elevate nutrition without them even knowing. But really what I love to do is to look at you and to help support you as a leader in your family and to help you take that place as a leader in your family. And you can only do that when you yourself are feeling well. So guys, I will see you Wednesday night for the bonus school lunchbox training. I hope you've enjoyed this time together and we will see you soon. Bye.